Oh, okay.
There's a big white thing screen across my thing.
There's one thing. Oh, nothing.
Yes, as you may know, we do record all these readings. Most of them are on my web page, free of charge. You can just go in and see 4 years. We're listening and go back in time. But once the pandemic hit, they have been recorded. And we are recording tonight. I hope that's okay with everybody. Do you think we should begin? Yeah, are we ready? I have a very dramatic 100-year-old Australian Shepherd who wants to weigh in on everything we talk about. So if you hear a dog bark, just ignore it, please.
No bark back.
Yes, that's what I do. Anyways, hello, and I'm so glad to see everybody here. Irene, Ansi, Carol, our featured readers, and my co-host, and also Rabbi Alex. I am glad we can still meet on Zoom, no matter what we're going to face here tonight and tomorrow. I want to thank Rabbi Alex and Joanne for working with us to ensure this option. And I want to thank our featured readers and co-hosts. And especially, I actually want to say a special thank you to Professor Carol Townsend.
She took her video.
Because she was a truly flexible spirit. We had a bit of a medical emergency with who was reading which month, and she accommodated us when we needed this sudden change. And you know, we have this reputation here in Buffalo of being the city of friendly neighbors, and you really were it, Carol, and we will not forget it. Thank you. Lately, I've been thinking about writing. I mean, we do it, but do we ever think about it? What it feels like to write. So I wanted to share just a few reflections. If everybody could mute, it would be a good idea. So I just wanted to share some of the thoughts I had lately about this. And you can think about how you feel about it and share your thoughts as well. So to me, writing feels a little bit like losing something. I remember something deeply personal and deeply felt and put it into words. And it's like taking a photograph of a personal space and you become a tourist in your own life. So I always associated the process with loss and death. Now, Rabbi Alex, if I may presume, my thought is that he experiences it very differently. He feels everyday moments with spiritual life and meaning. And I think he sees his poems more like something created, a birth. But you can correct me if I'm wrong, Rabbi. I have also heard about poets.
I would say that it feels like I'm channeling something.
So now I have heard lately, I'm in several poetry Zoom classes and things, that there are poets who take random words from other poets, like you pick one, say Walt Whitman, and you just collect 30 words from Walt Whitman and you write your own poem. And then I thought, you put it into a new poem, but the words are not your own, which means it sort of must become both personal and impersonal. It's a little bit, I feel like, stealing or plagiarizing under a new name. I've never tried it, so I don't know. I don't mean to be judgmental, but I also heard of another new trick, and professors do it. Graduate students do it, I hear. If they feel like their poem, they have to write one a week or something for a class, and it didn't come out like anything special or it was pretty bland, they send it to Google Translate. And then they translate it into some other language, and then they get the poem back. And hopefully by then it has this desired strangeness. You are nodding, Carol. You know about this? I've just heard about it, and I've never. Now I am bilingual, so in a sense, I maybe stream my poems between languages, but it's still a kind of new way of cheating, I felt. So I've never tried it, and I bet Rabbi Alex never tried it either. So now I wanted to just welcome Rabbi Alex to say whatever you want and to read a poem or two.
Sure. So I have a couple of poems. Sorry, because everyone's home and it's all kind of craziness. We have a lot of commotion here too, and a couple of dogs as well. I had the great pleasure this week of my daughter reading at the Interfaith Thanksgiving service, which was amazing to see the next generation. I have two poems I'll share today. One is about the first snow. I thought that was appropriate. First snow. Before the snow, the sky is the only thing that is white. A dark shadow descends like a giant bird, surveying the landscape. She nods, a twinkle in her eye, and through her body, stars bright falling, spreading out an avalanche until there is nothing not white, not even the snow. And then a recent poem, I read it on Friday night. This was about, I've started playing basketball again for after a long hiatus for raising kids. Well, you'll see, this is inspired by a game over at Clearfield Gym. It's called Hearts. The big man's shirt drips as he lumbers up and down the court of the Clearfield Gym. I want to tell him that the dark mark at the center of his gray t-shirt resembles a heart, but somehow it doesn't seem right as he pushes past me towards the basket. I think of the small indent in my driveway that also appears heart-like after it rains, and the cluster of yellow heart-shaped mulberry leaves that cover my lawn. None of these resemble actual hearts, the kind I ran through as a kid at the Franklin Institute with big blue veins in the shape of a large yam. Still, I cannot help but smile as the man's shirt presses on my face, his arms outstretched as the ball falls briskly through the hoop.
Oh, this is
I
the
hear
rabbi reading.
I hear my own heart pounding just to keep up. So I'll share those two with you tonight. I'm really looking forward to. Unfortunately, I have two other Zooms I have to go to in the middle, so I will be here as long as I can. But I'm so appreciative of this group, and how wonderful, Gunilla, to hear your voice to warm me up on this cold day.
Thank you, Rabbi. I am going to introduce our first featured reader, who is Carol Townsend, and I will read some from the bio that's online, but perhaps people haven't had the time to read it. And then I want to add a couple of my own words about Carol. Prior to Carol Townsend's retirement, she was Associate Professor of Art and Design and the former chair of the Design Department at the State University College of New York at Buffalo. She has been a participant in the Chautauqua Writers Center Poetry Workshops and has served on the board of the Chautauqua Literary Arts Friends. One of her poems was the first runner-up in the 2019 National Carolyn Forche Prize competition, sponsored by Waterwood Press. Her poems have appeared in the journals Voices de la Luna and Sow's Ear, the Healing Muse and the Buffalo News, and on the Master Poetry Inc. website. She is the author of the chapbook, A Cinder in My Knee, 2016, and more recently, a full-length book, The Color of Shadows, 2019 from Buffalo Arts Publishing. Am I loud enough? Can you hear me, everybody? Okay. Well, I first became really acquainted with Carol at Buffalo State, where we both served on the board of the Anne Frank Project, which is an initiative some of you may know that uses the power of stories to build community, to manage conflict, and explore identity. In addition to working with Western New York schools, Anne Frank Project brings Buffalo State students to Rwanda to collaborate with students there. Carol has accompanied students on this amazing venture. Carol's wonderful, multifaceted brain is matched by her huge, compassionate heart. Let's hear some poems.
Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction. And I would like to thank the organizing body for inviting me, certainly. And I welcome fellow poets, friends, and aficionados. Wonderful to be here. And Gunilla, it's really funny that you should mention snow and weather, because guess what my first poem is about? It's called Weather. If words were snowflakes, I would be knee-deep in them, write a novel. But I compose poems, choose few words, labor to reveal pavement hidden beneath. With shovel, I remove snow from sidewalks for paperboy and mailman. With pen, I arrange words on the page, attempt to clear a path between you and me.
Let's do the, Vanilla, should we explain the laws?
Thank you, thank you. My next poem is from—
Carol, let me just explain this. This is the sign Rabbi explained for, applauding in deaf language, and we have adopted it and use it in our sanctuary where we usually meet. Because for some reason we don't applaud in the sanctuary, so everybody does this, just so you know what it means. And
Yes.
everybody else who might not be aware of it.
Thank you.
Go
Thank you.
ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, my next poem is from my chapbook, A Cinder in My Knee. I grew up in a fairly remote area on the foothills of the Catskills. And as a child, I had to learn how to entertain myself, because if I ever said I was bored once, you wouldn't believe the chores that would be assigned. So this poem is called Compton's Pictured Encyclopedia. Door to door, my mother went in her robin egg blue Plymouth, lugging boxes of books, better than growing vegetables. World Book and encyclopedia reigned in our neighborhood, but armed with the gravitas of a former teacher, she sold enough sets to win a trip to New York City, sold even more, and miraculously, a volume appeared in our rural mailbox once a month, until the bookcase groaned under the weight of all 15. While friends watched television, I read leather-bound, gold-embossed tomes from cover to cover as soon as each arrived, looking up unfamiliar words. In 7th grade, the teacher scolded me, said gossamer was not a word, red marked my composition on the nature of angel wings. In high school, no nun could stump me with the Reader's Digest word of the month. The set moldered in my garage until yesterday's recycle pickup, its pages stuck together, edges foxed, spines mildewed. No resale value for all that knowledge. Maybe some of you have had that experience. What do you do with those old encyclopedias? The next poem is from my book, The Color of Shadows. And it is the poem that appeared in a bus stop for the Buffalo Lit on the Move, which was a big public arts project from Just Buffalo. It's called Nest. Like a sparrow gathers grasses and threads for her nest, a safe basket for her brood, I collect scraps of thought on strips of paper that one day will be wound into poems, strong vessels to contain my life. Another poem about writing, huh? Okay. What remains? The maple in front of their house, its roots sunk between sidewalk and street, stands barren since her husband's death. Oh, how he loved that tree, burning a fiery red that last autumn. She withdraws a few crimson leaves from a book on the coffee table. As she fingers them, they crumble, scatter across the carpet. She stares out the window at empty limbs, longing to feel her husband's body against hers, to forget the sight of him keeling over. Now she is a dead tree herself, hollow, an old sequoia, maybe a paper birch eaten by borers, or the chestnut outside Anne Frank's attic window, falling despite an armature of steel, like herself, corseted against grief. She is lost in a shadow forest, refusing to call the city about cutting this tree down, even after its branch crushes the hood of her car. After dark, she caresses the maple's flank, presses the trunk to herself, whispers. A fall poem, huh? Okay. I would like to share some new work. I have 3 poems that are related to each other. And the first one is about an old sweatshirt. Now, maybe your significant other or your spouse has some piece of clothing that is simply falling apart and they can't let it go, and you keep threatening to throw it out when they're not looking. So this is called Ode to an Old Sweatshirt. After 30 years of washings, your exact color has been lost. Bold number 2 pencil hue, now faded to dull ochre. You are made of ordinary cotton, stretched out of shape, frayed at the neck, sleeves cut off, ending at the elbow. Venerable friend, my good luck charm, survival accomplice, you have comforted me while I mourned my many losses: partner, daughter, job, mobility. But I am undeterred by your infirmities, despite my wife's threats to toss you out on garbage day. Wearing you is like being wrapped in sunshine. The fact is, I depend upon you even now. I too am faded, awkward, with pieces missing, tethered to cane and walker. Come, swaddle me, I beg of you, for I await my own demise, foreshadowed in each thread that snags, every seam that splits. The next poem in this set is called The Old Sweatshirt Speaks. Do not fault the ancient whirlpool washer for my loss of hue. The blame for my dinginess lies with you, O beloved one, who dribbles pea soup, maple syrup, chocolate milk down my front, which leads to rough scrubbing by that wife of yours, from whom you must do more to protect me. My biggest fear being that when you are not looking, she will bury me at the bottom of the garbage tote, or worse yet, cut me up for dust rags, the ultimate humiliation. Either way, I will pass into ignominy. Yet I forgive you, loyal buddy, because I do not know which of us keeps the other warm during these cold nights when you wear me to bed. And thanks for losing weight, which makes me stretch less, perhaps adding years to my life. Who knows what I would do without you, dear friend, especially with your wife giving me the old side eye while holding in her hands a sharp pair of scissors. And the last one in the set is called The Wife Admits All. You would think that you, old nasty garment, was his girlfriend by how he wraps himself in you, and you cut off at the elbows, stretched out of shape, disgusting in your daily crust of breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So tattered, torn, and stained. Sudsucker, shame on you for turning my husband into a geezer. For that, you will not be forgiven. To tell you the truth, I do glare at him when he tries to sneak out of the house attired in you. When I hear the garbage truck around the corner, I cajole him to do the deed himself. Like a pet about to be put down, you might be consoled that way. But no, he refuses. Be assured that I am not jealous, for I am not being dumped for a decrepit pullover. After all, my skin is more lovely than your sallow complexion. But don't let him know that I tolerate you out of fear. O ancient adversary, that one day I will find my nose buried deep in you, breathing him in, remembering his past foibles fondly. And my last poem is called Transcendence, and it's also about writing, as it turns out. So here goes. Transcendence. I cannot help but scatter pieces of me, leaving them behind, marking certain places as mine, each astonishing, sacred, like the path that slides down the back slope of the Acropolis, the flattened peak of Monte Alban, where hawks cavort above clouds, the rope bridge hovering high over Rwandan jungle. But when fingers of sunlight slant, caress my garden late in the day, I am driven inside to lined paper, sharpened pencil, the altar of writing desk. Only then do I reassemble, am made whole again. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. I just have to wonder how you can be a person of so many talents, such a esteemed and beloved person in the art and design department. And then when I found out that you're also an accomplished poet, I thought, how did she do that? Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. I feel I was a little, can you hear me? Yeah, I was a
Yes.
little disappointed that we wouldn't meet in person today, but I feel now that I've gotten to know you quite well. And I agree with you. We scatter and we reassemble. That's the answer to your question, Irene. She gave it to us. It's now my pleasure to introduce Ancy Baird, who was our Buffalo Corner inaugural poet. She read at the very first Buffalo Corner event at Shir Shalom. What is it? Over 4 years ago. So it's great to have you back. And I'm sorry about the Zoom. I know it's not your favorite way, but what can we do, right? There's not much we can do. So this is safer for everybody. So Ancy Baird taught for 40 years at the Buffalo Seminary and is a former editor for Earth's Daughters and has taught for Just Buffalo in their Writers in Education program and participated in the Albright Knox collaborative entitled A Picture Worth 1,000 Words. Her work has been published a number of times in the Paris Review, as well as in the Southern Review, Denver Quarterly, the Quarterly, Western Humanities Review, New Ohio Review, and a number of other journals. Her book, In Advance of All Parting, won the White Pine Press National Poetry Competition and was published by White Pine Press in 2009. I remember being at a reading at Damon, Ancy, I think right after that event, and you, very youthful in your jeans and some colorful top, sat on the floor with two of your grandkids. Maybe some of them are here today. I just remember because I didn't know you, and I was just, but I had heard about your book, and so that's the memory that comes back. Now, in 2016, Blaze Vox Press published her second full-length collection of poems, The Solace of Islands. In addition, in 2016, she was one of 4 poets included in Outriders Press book entitled 4 Buffalo Poets. The Foundling Press published her latest collection entitled Porch Watch in May of 2019. So really, they say 3 is a charm, and this is the 3rd time we welcome you back to the Buffalo Corner. Thank you, Ancy.
Nancy, you're muted, dear. You're muted.
Yeah, you need to hit the mute button.
Hit just, that's
Unmute,
it.
don't touch. Okay. Am I still muted?
You're
No.
good.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yes, it's not my favorite way to be. I mean, technology is probably my second worst enemy after mountains, but I am delighted, in fact, that we have saved the day, that we are not giving up, and that we are all gathered in our ways to be together and to listen to one another reading poetry. I'm Susan Nussbaum. That's why it says that under my name. The poems I'm going to read tonight are all new, as in the last couple of years. I have not read them at any reading. And so I think that's true of every one of them, that they have not been read before. And I'm going to start with, often a poet is asked, what is your favorite poem? And so often I've heard poets say, well, I think my favorite poem is my last poem. And I think that's understandable because that's the poem that you're most involved with, that you've just finished. In this case, I'm going to begin with my last poem, which I finished last week. So that's not my favorite poem, but I don't have a favorite poem, actually. I've been writing since I was in 4th grade, so I guess it's a long time to have a favorite poem. This poem starts, it's called What Next When? We threw ourselves into the future together, bandied around as though we had any possibility of a future together, when in truth, we'd never even completed a night together. Your shabby red velvet smoking jacket, rather ridiculous, smelled of smoke. Imagine that. You joked around about the avant-garde pieces you had to perform on the piano, Takamitsu, then played like the pro you already were. Everyone was clapping and you bowed while facing in my direction, half smiling. I smuggled into the concert newly baked sugar cookies, my next best present for you. Now old crumbs in my old coat, I throw them away. Well, since we're in November, and I happen to have a poem about November, I'll read it. It's called Also November. While golden November takes over, takes away, it's not a bad time to die. Trees blazing their radiant leaves, flinging fistfuls into failing eyes, legs weakening as days grow darker, earlier. The wheeze in your chest is unlike any early spring breeze, more the way a slow door eases itself shut, wheezing. If in fact you're leaving, don't ask for much. Let death be swift, keen, a paring knife stabbing the russet apple, its generous taste sweet between your teeth. This is a poem called Cinema Verite. I have a lot of poems about growing old and death, which is a funny thing since I'm so young, but it is a fact of nature, and I am growing old. Cinema Verite. Approaching death, the vast film embedded in my tiny brain somehow begins rewinding. Everyone I've ever known making an appearance. Small people tinted purple inhabit my head like bugs in a forest. They're everywhere, emerging on this capacious stage, one actor after another to take a ritual bow, while I and my rattled past are the recipient of all their grand appearances. Well, let them come. They seem to need to bid me farewell. One last featured skit, one last bow in my brain. I should be grateful. It's making my nights into an actual cinema verite, introducing all the best characters. And I get to enter the theater free, no entrance fee. Lucky me. Not very spiritual, but I have occasional moments of spirituality. And this one is called Call in Your Angels. I'm also not very ornithological, and I've got 2 poems about birds, so that's a contradiction, which you're going to find in most poets. So this is called Call in Your Angels. Where are my angels anyway? A great blue heron lurks or considers his life on a leafy branch of a capacious tree, bending over the creek in the cemetery just across the street from me. He was there yesterday, preening his long beak tucked in his lavish chest of gray blue feathers, monk-like, stolid and imposing, gazing my way. Today, when I return, there he is again on the same branch of the same damn tree. Good God, is he dead or something? No, he turns his head, watching as wild ducks gather in a pack to take wing. He must be waiting for me. Perhaps he's one of my angels, a kind of intercessor between my vacancy and that which is abundant. I'm not inclined to ask him for a blessing, but his presence in this graveyard feels auspicious, transforming one more bleak evening into something maybe just a tiny bit holy. A different tone entirely, but also about something that's bird-like. It's a dialogue between me and one of my daughters, and it's called The Chickens Are Sad. My daughter calls me from the country, 45 minutes away. It's a dreary Monday morning here in town. What's it like in the city? Any snow? No, I say, the streets are bare, it's just fine. Well, it's not fine out here. We have 3 or 4 inches of snow on the ground. Oh, I say, how do the dogs like the snow? They're okay, but the chickens are sad. How do you know they're sad? They always look perky to me, and they aren't moaning, are they? No, but they're really sad. I can just tell. I'm smuggled under my covers, and I can't wait to get out of here, get to Florida. I'm not going anywhere, I tell her. And Florida, of all places, is boring. Everyone complacent or too rich. Up here, we have events to go to, and we need to scrape snow off our cars all winter. It's good for us. Not for me, she says. I can't stand it when wind batters the glass and the chickens are sad. Who ever heard of sad chickens? Well, last February, no, it was January, I had a surgery knee replacement, which was pretty grim, and which I would talk about at length, but I'm not going to right now. And this is just one poem from it. It's called The Green Blanket. Well, bundled in bed, post-operative, right leg swathed in ample bandages, elevated on pillows. The giant ice machine churns and surges out something like release from the nonstop jolts of pain stabbing my shin. Through a fog, I recognize the youngest of my 3 daughters looming by me. I brought you your keys, she seems to be saying. My keys? I'm confused. Am I supposed to be going somewhere? What have I forgotten now? My keys, I mumble? No, Mom, your cane. I thought perhaps you'd like to try out the brand new cane. What a relief. No need to be anywhere but in my bed, tucked in my green wool blanket, the one with my high school name tag sewn on by my attentive mother 65 years ago when I was setting off for college. So much has changed and nothing much has changed. I'm still here, my green blanket still keeping me warm, as my ever-present mother bends over me, healing me in the familiar face of my youngest daughter. A couple of poems about myself as a little girl. This one's called Mad Dog. There is not enough time to forget everything, says the poet, and I am besieged by remembrance when a bit of oblivion would come in handy. The disasters of childhood seem yesterday. At 3, I decided to bite my older sister on a regular basis. Our mother was stymied. Call in the German woman. I hated her on sight. It was the early 40s and everyone hated the Germans. She sat herself firmly on our back porch and counseled my mild mother. You must make a sign to hang around the neck of the child. She must wear it every day until she stops biting her sister. The sign will say, "Mad dog, beware, bites people." I cried, I don't want to wear that sign. But my mother was at her wit's end. She wrote on a shirt cardboard, added lengths of string to hang around my neck. I never bit anyone ever again. This is when I was 4. That was when I was 3. This is when I was 4. It's called Spit, S-P-I-T, spit. When I was 4, I had my teeth cleaned by a dental hygienist. Her name was Miss Bacon. No, I didn't believe it. Was there a Mr. Tomato, I wondered, or a Dr. Sandwich? Maybe she called her little boy Eggs. Then he could say, my name is Eggs and Bacon. But she didn't have a little boy, only a little yellow canary. I was longing to ask if its name was Spit, please. Another poem about teeth, for God's sake. I didn't think I wouldn't be interested in that, but anyway, here it is. It's a completely different tone. It's called Overbite. I'd prefer you keep my name out of your mouth, though maybe I should linger on the tip of your tongue like a bee sting, a reminder that you used to suck my name like a hard candy you didn't want to dissolve. No, keep my name in your mouth, but do not mention me to the unspeakable people you hang out with. We seem to write each other's lyrics, sometimes back, time erodes times, and it's time now to keep your mouth shut. My name stuck somewhere behind a set of decaying molars. That was called Overbite. This is very different and very strange, and it's kind of out of the medieval times. There are characters in medieval villages that assume different roles. In this one, it's called His Day Job. He appointed himself chief mourner of his own village. Whenever anyone died, he would put on his shabby mourning shirt, black pants and cap, walking the streets, ringing a large brass handbell and weeping. People respected his grief, which was real and which permitted others to go about their business, carving wooden sailboats, eating noodles, shoveling snow, planting begonias. He alone denied himself daily pleasures, and in that way took upon himself the losses of his neighbors. Woe, woe, he cried, tears streaming down his ruddy, wrinkled face. Occasionally, some neighbor would seek to console him. It was a good death. These things happen. His time had come. She was at peace. Never mind, he'd reply. Each death is irreplaceable, and he'd enumerate the virtues of the deceased, even those of someone surly or downright mean. It was something of a relief, actually, for the town to possess a chief mourner. Nobody felt a family member would be neglected, though it occurred to one or two introspective types to wonder who would mourn the chief mourner when he was deceased. Still, it didn't keep them awake nights. Everyone has a gift of some sort. His was for grieving. Weren't they fortunate? This poem is called The Abandoned Garden. Once time was as fragrant as dance. Closing my eyes, buds erupted, blooms lavished the outcroppings, squirrels dashed here and there, hoarding their loot, the divine chestnuts. I was fecund and familiar, my face lit with greeting and the topsoil burdened. How time has bleached me down to a backyard, splintered fence posts outlining the edges. Perhaps I don't much mind this plain face still peering forward as I wait for the late gardener's arrival. The quick gates click. That's a little grim. It's going to get grimmer. I've got sad things happening, so that's the way it is. Anyway, this one is called On Survival. When someone leaves, really leaves, I read by grieving. I mean, I grieve by reading, devoting one entire day to my lost devoted friend, a child or adult or very old person. It matters not a whit which age I lose, along with the world which loses also. All I do is read, read, read for consolation. Sometimes the Psalms, sometimes a play where characters are jovial at first, then suffering as we are wont to do. When I am lost, I can transfer the life lost to great language, because only words, 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 as Hamlet observed, are our path to rescue, if there is any rescue. I honor absence in my life with language, not my own, for what has already been said, turning great pages, gazing ferociously at eloquence in such a way the world takes on a brighter, moody hue, a high-pitched aura of endurance, a kind of survival. I do recommend it. Reading, reading, and reading. This poem, I seem to have lost my audience. Something has happened, but maybe you're still there. I just don't see you. I don't see myself. I don't see anything.
Well,
We can still
see-
hear and see you.
We
Okay.
see and hear you. So
Okay, I can't see anything except some strange person doing something completely different, murdering somebody or something. Anyway, this is the second to last poem. I have two. This is the second to last. It's from the same kind of tone. It's called Rounding the Road's Curve. I've not mastered the art of losing people. I don't mean in some aisle of the supermarket. I don't mean losing them when letters lie unanswered or calls unreturned. I mean the actual event, the ritual of losing someone forever who will not turn up again at the summer picnic. I mean the cherished face you place your hands around even in possibility, the face you light up for, and its radiance returns when you round the road's curve. Never is a word not to get used to. Do not attempt to shed this sorrow. It is an art we are unequipped to master. Live with it and carry on. And the last poem is actually an old, well, it took place a long time ago, although I think I wrote it pretty recently. But a long time ago, maybe 40 years ago, John Ashbery read it, The Albright Knox. And in the upstairs in the auditorium, and he said something like this about what does he do when people interrupt him when he's writing? And I just listened to it, and it was wise and amusing in the same way. And this is how I'm going to conclude. And it's called John Ashbery's Answer to Inspiration. These interruptions are our work, says the keeper of clocks. No matter the hour, always answer the insistent knock on the door or the sound of any bell ringing. The one standing there, his conversation stuffed in his pocket like smuggled goods, may bring you news which will change everything, eliminate all your earthly mistakes, illuminate whatever phrases wait patiently to be placed on the expectant page. And that same page will be here tomorrow. Don't worry. Take all the time in the world to finish this poem. Thank you.
What delightful poetry. I could listen to both of these poets all night long. Thank you so much.
yes, thank you, Ansi. I
We don't have, I don't have you.
I don't know, can you hear me? I was very struck by this. Never is a word not to get used.
Not to get used to.
Oh, not to get used to.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I did write the whole sentence. So this is, I think, vintage Ansi Baird, how you can distill something into a phrase like that now I will remember for the rest of my life. I'm always struck by the details, the humor, the contradictions, and the layer of voices that we hear in her writing. Thank you very much. Now, we usually have a moment of question answer at this point. Does anybody have a question to either of our featured readers or about poetry more in general? Now is the time. You can raise your hand or you can do it, I guess, on the screen if you have a question.
Me too. Yes. Well, Carol might speak to the availability where to find both of her books, because if we'd been in person tonight, we could have had a table where we could have been lucky enough to purchase some books. So I thought Carol might speak to that. And Ansi, I'm wondering when some of the poems that you read tonight, when will we see them in a published form so that we can peruse them again and again on our own? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, my books, Let's see, I think Talking Leaves still has a couple of copies. I think our dialogue, not Art Dialogue, the artist gallery that's backed up to Art Dialogue carries some of them. I do have a website, which is just caroltownsendpoetry.com. And Amazon did carry them at one point, so I don't know whether they're still there or not, but, and then of course from me at readings. Yes.
What about Fitz Books?
I haven't had a chance to visit there yet.
Oh, you must, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And oh, Ansley, we can't hear you.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My point, I think there's a few books at Talking Leaves, and I know there's a couple at Fitz Books. I have a commitment for a book to come out in the year 23, but I think it's going to be close to the end of 23 with Foundling Press again. Published my last book, it isn't, some of these poems will be in it. It's with the editors at this point, but it's going to be a slow process since they do a lot of other things, but they are assuring me and have assured me that it's going to come out sometime in the next year, and that's good enough for me. That's fine.
Good. We'll look forward.
And I will certainly have a reading when that happens. So maybe back here, who knows? Yeah, thank you.
Are there other questions? Comments? Or is it time for Gunilla to perhaps share a couple of poems with us? Gunilla?
Yes, there are other questions. I just wanted to wrap up and say thank you to everyone. It's a little bit of a scary evening here in Buffalo for those of you who are from far away, and we are expecting some. We don't really know what is going to happen here, but we might get 5 feet of snow. So that's a lot. So thank you for showing up on Zoom and for supporting us all this time. I hope to see you back here at the Buffalo Corner. We have some very interesting poets coming up, both local and from far away. In December, we welcome back a brilliant Jewish poet, Paul Nemser. Some of you might have heard him read at the Buffalo Corner last December, and he's coming out of Boston area, and together with him, he will read with Rochester poet Charles Cote. I don't know if the accent is at the Cote or Cote, but hopefully he will come in person if our roads are open. In January, we welcome Buffalo Poet Laureate and spoken word artist Gillian Hainsworth. I'm really looking forward to that because she knows my daughter. So it's kind of interesting with the generations. And she will read together with, via Zoom, Diane Frank, who is a very good poet based in San Francisco. And she's also a professional musician. I think she plays the cello in the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra. So that will be interesting. And in February, you may expect not 1, but 2 Pulitzer Prize winning poets, because we have combined Philip Schultz, who is fabulous, with our Buffalo's Carl Dennis. And in March, we welcome the formidable Alicia Ostreicher, who is like one of the most famous poets in America, if not the world, especially being Jewish. She will come in, Zoom in from New York City, together with, Irene, the name.
Kim Chin-Kay, who is a poet and professor at Buffalo State.
And you send me the name and I forgot.
That's okay. She's,
I hope she'll forgive me. I'll have it down by the time.
well, she
Now in
flashed.
April, thank you. In April, we have the usual open read for National Poetry Month. Whoever wants to read, just contact me or Irene and we'll make a roster. Hopefully we can be in person by then. In May, we welcome back the Edgar Award winning author Gary Earl Ross for the annual Mystery Night. And he always invites some people from New York and some people more local. And it's one of our best repeat performances ever. And in June, we are featuring poet Sherry Robbins, has agreed to come, thanks to Irene, and a novelist historian named Bert Fryman, who wrote a really good book about European Russian history back in the day. So there will be two very different voices. And I thought if you don't mind, now because Nancy here, was it talked about teeth? Did you read a poem about your teeth? So
Well, I mean, I read something. I read, yes, but having my teeth cleaned and that.
well, it reminded me of a poem I wrote in the fall called Lemon Silence. This morning, the dentist. She scraped my old teeth clean like a Roman monument, or the Sacré-Cœur in Montmartre, where Stendhal and Zola rest. It's always Big Ben. He needs to come in, and sorry about that. I inherited this clock from my father-in-law, whom I love. Anyways, so yes, she scraped my old teeth clean like the Sacré-Cœur in Montmartre, where Stendhal and Zola rest. Every spring in Paris, they start washing her north of the main gate and reach the other side a year later, only to see she's already blackened where they began. You left me a lemon on the doorstep. It seemed all spring we set up camp every night to pull it down again in the morning. Each day we got faster at tearing things down. I took comfort from the great poet who wrote, angels cannot distinguish between the living and the dead. On the stone steps, the lemon you left. Juncos nest in the hanging basket by the front door. Greeted me for a month with their warning calls, facing me from roof or birch branches, whether I was leaving or coming home. Shady place, plant shaggy. Greens pouring out along the sides like a waterfall. My Puerto Rican friend says these birds are lucky signs in his country. Are we not now, both of us, American, born or otherwise included? When he smashed his car, black blossoms on his torso could no longer speak. How to know which silence hurts and which doesn't? And of course, there's a dog not making any silence. It's a new poem. And some of you know I'm a classical guitar player. And this is based on that experience. It's called Guitar Shops, 4 Continents. Why, God, is it that when a woman walks into a guitar shop, humble or renowned, the man behind the counter sports a smile that snakes around his face like the alleyways leading up to Red Alhambra as he hunts through his teeth and sighs while he brings forward his cheapest instrument, pointing to a low chair by the door without a footstool or a moment of peace, while dust and noise stream in, blend with the glory of a Bach prelude, traveling from major to relative minor to the 5 of 5, and I shake my head while I want to shake the unresponsive guitar, and I really want to shake the young man with his black mustache, which blinds him to the fact that a woman can play too and have better rhythm and ear than he does. And what about God, who could turn the driftwood guitar golden with a snap? Thank you all. That's it for tonight. I'm so glad we had this evening. And yes, we have some people visiting this Michael Foran I've known for quite a few years. We were in a poetry group together, and hopefully we can welcome you to read once next year or so. He writes some scary about how things can turn out when you are young and make difficult decisions, right? So
Thank you,
thank
Gunnar.
you all. Anybody have any comment before we say goodnight?
It started to snow in Buffalo.
Oh, yeah.
Here. I don't know about
I'm
there.
close to the airport and I haven't seen any snow yet, but it will come.
Thank you very much. It was a lovely evening. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Ansi. Thank you, Carol, Karima for coming, Irene for arranging everything, David for being always here, Daniel, and yes, everybody. Thank you so much.
Good to see you all. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Meet again in December.
Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you so
Thanksgiving.
much.
Mhm.